You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
And good evening and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Coming up tonight, we got a full slate here of guests. Of course, we'll be talking about last week's action in high school football. Look ahead to week number 7 as well. Our coach guests coming up here in hour number 1 at about 6:25 p.m. from the Witt-Birn Chargers. We will be joined by Jason Rieck as they are 4-2, looking like they're heading back towards another playoff berth in the CWC Large. So Jason Rieck coming up at 6:35. And also, we have not one but 3 student-athlete guests this week. At 7:06, we'll talk to DC Everest senior running back Blake Bankston. He has more than 900 yards already on the ground so far this season as he's helped the Evergreens to a 5-game win streak and a 5-1 season, start this season. That's at 7:06, and at 7:25. We'll be joined by a pair of area volleyball standouts as Newman Catholic's Lily Shields and DC Everest's Kirsten Hall will be with us. As coming up next Tuesday, there will be a matchup between Newman and DC Everest to benefit the Neighbors Place. So we'll talk about that special event and also about the seasons that Newman and DC Everest are having with Lily Shields and Kirsten Hall coming up at about 7:25 this evening. Across the way again is the former head football coach at Wausau West High School, Jason Foster. Coach, heading into week number 7, a little bit of a fall tinge in the air, but still warmer than normal for this time of year, but heading into the final third of the regular season.
Yeah, we're crazy that it's already week 7.
I know.
And the weather, yeah, we had a little chillier yesterday, but we're still in the 70s here. So yeah, it's homecoming season, so we're just about wrapping that up and getting back to the real world. But yeah. It's exciting. The conference championships are starting to align themselves a little bit, and people are starting to look playoffs, so it's an exciting time.
Let's talk about last week's action, starting with the Wisconsin Valley Big Rivers East Conference. We were in Stevens Point last week, and the Stevens Point Panthers were very impressive, defeating Wausau West on Stevens Point's homecoming night, 37-16. Spash now 4-2 overall, 3-1 in the. But I'm going to say this: when I say these records, that's conference for playoff purposes. I mean, we'll spend half the show talking about the separate conference records and such. But Stevens Point, in terms of getting to the postseason, 3-1 in their conference. Wausau West 3-3 overall, 2-2 in the conference. Grant Schotten now 20 of 26, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, also 18 rushes, 76 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Johnny Matthews was impressive for Spash, 15 rushes for 105 yards. Quarterback Jack Kostrowski for the Warriors was 9 of 18, 130 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Bennett Manson had 5 catches, 74 yards. But it was a game that it was kind of a choppy first half, I thought. Nothing really got going, especially for West. Stevens Point scored a late touchdown in the first half to lead 14-0. Then they came out in the third quarter, pulled away to lead 30-0 at one point. But Stevens Point did a lot of things well. That screen game, I thought, again, was very impressive. And it was just a rough night for Wausau West.
Yeah, they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little early with turnovers, and they did all night long just kind of put themselves in tough situations, whether it was penalties and being behind the sticks, or kind of in the special teams maybe taking some kicks off of the 1 or 2 yard line and bringing them out to the 10 or 12 as opposed to letting them go through and getting the ball out of the 25. So just kind of a lot of little things. It kind of seemed like they didn't really have their mojo that night, and you got to give Spash a ton of credit. They played really well. They kind of lived up to expectations, bounced back after a tough loss to Hudson the week before, and Grant Schotten did what he does, right? He ran the ball well, he threw the ball well, probably one of the more efficient throwing nights, but a lot of those were short passes, whether it was screen or those quick swings out to either side, and just overall a good performance. But even with that, West really had the opportunity, as poorly as they played in the first half, to go in at halftime only down 7-0, and then they kind of gave up that one, like you said, right before half, and that really seemed to turn the tide.
And both touchdowns that Stevens Point scored in the first half were the direct results of turnovers. I mean, again, as a coach, you see that so clearly. The first pick led to a 5-yard touchdown drive, and then, as you said, late in the first half, that fumble that gave Stevens Point the ball inside the Warrior 40, and then they were able to convert with a score. Perhaps the biggest turning point of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk about that going in, and you don't make too big of a deal about it because at the end of the day, turnovers kind of in high school football kind of are what they are. Some nights you have none, and you don't know why, and some nights you have 3, and nothing really changed or different. Some kids who don't turn the ball over did for some reason, and just tough. And what an atmosphere too. I mean, Spash had that place packed. West had a nice student section and contingency there, but so it was a great. I mean, I'd be interested to know what the attendance was at that game. It was huge, but it was a good night for high school football and tough night for the Warriors.
DC Everest stays undefeated in the conference. They win their 5th game in a row overall, 48-20 over Eau Claire North. It was the Evergreens homecoming game. Everest now 5-1 overall, 4-0 in the conference. North is 2-4, 2-2. Logan George, 9 of 11, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns, did lead the game in the second quarter. Apparently he's okay. I had asked Blake Bankston when I had a chance to talk to him how Logan George was doing, just precautionary. He took a bit of a shot, and Jake Stasiak came in and did a pretty good job himself. 11 of 12, 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. Blake Bankston, again, our student athlete guest, coming up at 7:06, 14 rushes, 139 yards and 2 scores. Peyton McCracken, the quarterback for North, was 14 of 20, 147 yards and 2 scores. Everest really hasn't been threatened, have they, in the last 5 weeks, have they?
No, not at all. We kind of, from 3 weeks ago when they played the Warriors, I would say the one thing we left that game thinking that maybe their defense would, if they had a weakness, it might be on that side of the ball a little bit, but that really has not seemed to have been the case. I think they keep moving forward. What year is Jake Stasiak?
That's a good question.
I'm not 100% sure. I just kind of referencing both them and Spash and how they have really nice quarterbacks backing up their starters. I watched our JV game against Spash on Monday night, and their JV quarterback, who will be their starter next year, just had an outstanding game in the JV game. And Everest, this Jake Stasiak came in 11 for 12, 173, 2 touchdowns. That's a heck of a game as well. So
he is a junior.
So yeah,
thank goodness for computers.
Yeah, they seem to be in pretty good shape with that. And actually, Grant Shannon's freshman brother, who suits up for varsity, played in the JV game. He's a heck of an athlete too. So both of these programs seem to be poised to compete for a championship in the conference this year and probably have a bright future as well.
It's been a struggle for Marshfield, but they're one win away from likely making the postseason playoffs. They're now 2-4 overall, 2-2 in conference. They shut out Wisconsin Rapids 26-0 as Lincoln still looking for their first win of the season. Graydon Rhodey, 17 rushes, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns for Marshfield. They scored a couple of touchdowns in the first quarter, scored a couple of touchdowns in the third quarter, and that was at Rapids held to 177 yards of total offense, but again, 0 yards passing and could not really get the rush game going all that well, 3.2 yards per carry. But Marshfield, looking more like Marshfield, and Wisconsin Rapids just does not have that plan B when it comes when they're not running the football well.
Yeah, it sounds like Rapids is just struggling to do most things right now. They can't get on the board, and everyone's kind of doing what they need to do to beat them, whether it's 21, 26 points, whatever it is. But yeah, it's a tough road. They probably have a couple games ahead of them, that North and Memorial, that they'll compete to try to get some wins in those. And Marshfield, this week is a big one for them as far as playoff, because they do have a couple tougher games down the road for them. So this should be a good battle. I know in talking to Coach Johnson and kind of scouting this Marshfield Rapids game that Marshfield had some big plays and were successful, had a couple short fields that assisted them as well. But they do seem their offense seems pretty consistent right now. While they struggled to score last year and they struggled to score to start this season, they do seem to be kind of in that 3-4 touchdowns game. They had the big outburst with 50 a couple weeks ago. So setting up to be a really nice game Friday night.
And it's interesting to look at some of these teams in the conference like North and Marshfield that have a couple of wins now. I mean, they're playing for playoff spots, and they're going to be actually facing each other yet. And so, again, you know that teams like Stevens Point and DC Everest are going to be in. Wausau West looking pretty good at getting in, but there's some potential of still getting 5 teams, maybe. Things have to go right, I think, for that to happen. But some big games coming up in the conference.
I would say the one other thing about the Marshfield game as well is that to get their rushing game going with Graydon Rohde. I mean, they obviously have a connection. That probably one of the best receivers in the conference. Didn't show up in the stats for this one, but certainly if they can run the ball and have him as a target, that makes them a tough opponent.
And Eau Claire Memorial still looking for that first W. They lost to Menominee 45-16. Interesting about Menominee. Again, I go back to week 1. They played North. It was 22-19. Menominee had a rough year last season, made the playoffs, but I think only 3 wins overall. They're 5-1. It shows, again, I think we kind of keep an eye on what's happening over in the big rivers. And it's been interesting over in that conference, hasn't it?
If you asked me a week ago today about New Richmond, I mean, we commented last week how they're playing much better football, but they beat Marshfield 7-6, and then they went and knocked off Rice Lake last week. And
I thought the same thing.
I mean, Rice Lake I thought would run away with this conference the way they had been playing, and that was a really close one, I don't remember exactly, but a 2 or 3 point or 1 point game. It was right there. So I mean, wow, New Richmond is really kind of setting themselves up for a conference championship as well.
Great Northern Conference, Medford again. I think right now a step ahead, not only in the standings but in the way they've been performing. They defeated Wausau East 44-6 last week. Medford now 5-1 overall, 3-1 in the GNC. East is 3-3 overall, 2-2 in the conference, and Paxton Rothmeyer. These are the games. When I see these numbers, it says to me, well, he's got all conference because one of those games that it's like if he does mediocre the rest of the time, his numbers are going to be good. Because last week he had 24 rushes for 290 yards and 3 touchdowns. Davis Winter for East was 8 of 17, 89 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Ian Stahl, 15 rushes, 61 yards. But I think that the way we've been talking about these teams this season, that we knew that Medford, they run the ball. East, that kind of team has been a bit of the Achilles heel, because I think, take 2 weeks ago, a team like Mosinee that does it a lot through the air, that was a better matchup for East. This was not a great matchup for East.
Yeah, and I think it seems like it's becoming clear, too, that as we go through the rest of these scores, and quite honestly, some that were really surprising or even mind-boggling, but it's interesting. I think it really comes down to matchups, and I think you kind of hit it on the head. If East goes up against a team that can run the ball well, they're going to struggle. If they go up against a team that doesn't run the ball well and maybe relies a little more on passing the ball, they seem to have more success in those areas. And as we'll talk about Merrill, we talk about Lakeland, we talk about Mosinee, like injuries all kind of play a role in that as well. And it seems to be the theme in our area this year that quarterbacks seem to be the guys who are struggling to stay healthy.
Mosinee beat Tomahawk 28-14. Mosinee now 4-2 overall, 3-1 in the GNC. Hatchets 2-4 overall, 1-3 in the conference. But Tomahawk led that game in Mosinee, 7-0 at halftime. But a big third quarter, 3 touchdowns for Mosinee gave them the lead. They would not relinquish. Treve Stoffel, 16 of 28, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 8 rushes, 97 yards, a touchdown, 11 tackles. Again, we talk about him. Throwing, running, double-digit tackles almost every week. Brady Locken, 8 catches, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Mosinee, and a couple of massive rushing efforts for Tomahawk. It makes me wonder, and again, I did not see this game, but you had Braden Larson, 27 rushes, 176 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and Tegan Saracen, 16 rushes, 147 yards for Tomahawk. But those two combined more than 300 yards and only 14 points.
Yeah, and I think that this Tomahawk team seems to be using the term generally for real, right? I mean, They're definitely coming into this conference being by far the smallest, had the potential to kind of really take their lumps this year, and to some extent they've been competitive in at least half of every single game they've been in, including a win or 2.
And Mosinee, it's not been easy for Mosinee this year, has it?
No, it has not. I think they're probably growing a lot and learning, and it'll be interesting. I know they continue to be pretty banged up. It'll be interesting if they can find a way to get healthy down the stretch, if they can't put some things together and maybe surprise some people down the road.
Antigo is now 4-2. overall, 2-2 in the conference. Again, the two losses have been pretty ugly losses, but they find ways to win every close game. I mean, it's been amazing, and they did it in the Bell game against Rhinelander, 28-20. Hodags, again, they got off to a good start with their non-conference games, and now they're 1-3 in the conference, 3-3 overall. Colton Tomei of Antigo was 7 of 16, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, 15 rushes, 85 yards. It was basically even in yardage, 284 to 279 for Rhinelander. But, boy, you've been around the game a long time. I mean, some teams just have that knack. And Antigo's got the knack right now. When there's a game that's on the line in the fourth quarter, they're finding ways to win.
Yeah, I think those wins they had early in the season, we talk about that all the time, week 1 and week 2, when those teams come in 1-0 or 2-0, and those are big wins, and you kind of build off that. You kind of build of going off the road, on the road, and getting those wins. And Rhinelanders got to be scratching their head right now. Like, I think they kind of were feeling pretty good after week 1 and week 2, and they've lost to games that I can almost guarantee you they had circled on their schedule as games they needed to win to get into the playoffs, Anago being one of those.
And also another thing about that Anago squad, I thought after losing at home to Merrill the way they did, I thought, okay, now they're going to kind of say, well, maybe this is who we are. But then the bounce back in a big rivalry game also, I thought, I liked seeing that, where the kids able to dig deep and bounce back from what was a disappointing loss on their home field to 7 days later, or just a huge victory.
Yeah, and this game also has proven to me that I should stop assuming anything about the matchups in this conference, aside from Medford. When we look at later on who's playing this week, a lot of toss-ups.
And one other game in the Great Northern Conference Saturday was homecoming for Merrill, and the Blue Jays with a late score defeat Lakeland 18-12. So Merrill in good shape at 4-2 overall, 2-2 in the conference. Lakeland 3-3, 1-3. Aiden Lonsdorf 9 of 17, 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Callum Wheeler 7 rushes, 65 yards for the Blue Jays. 2 Merrill players were ejected, apparently, and are out for this week's game against East Odyssey, and one of those, apparently, is Aiden Lonsdorf. And boy, we talked about quarterbacks having a hard time staying on the field. Usually it's been because of injury. In this case, saying maybe a word or two he shouldn't have said. I guess, number one, they found a way to win the football game, but then now they're going to be in a pretty tough shape going into this week.
Yeah, the version I heard, and who knows? The truth is definitely somewhere in the middle, I'm certain. But it sounds like this was kind of some off-the-field stuff leading into this game, maybe social media related. I think that's pretty common these days. I think this is a rivalry between the two of them, and I think it happened right at the end, too. So that's just a tough way. In talking to Coach Wadzinski earlier and talking to our guest last week, like, part of having no wins last year and getting to where they're at this year is kind of learning how to win, right? And how to handle winning. It sounds like this might be a situation where they struggled with that.
So that's the Valley and the GNC. Coming up later, we'll recap the CWC Large and CWC Small / Merrillwood, whatever they're calling it these days. But coming up in 1 minute, we will have our coach guest for this week. We'll talk to the head football coach at Witt-Birn High School, Jason Rieck. He has led his team to a 4-2 record so far this season, heading towards another playoff run for the Chargers. So we'll talk to him coming up in 1 minute. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday night, it's homecoming for the Wausau West High School football team. The Warriors will play host to Marshfield in a Wisconsin Valley Conference matchup. Hear all the exciting action live on 98.9 WXCO, online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Coverage begins with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. Wausau West Sports on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by the Cloverbelt Credit Union, Red Robin Restaurants, Sun Printing, the Wausau West Athletic Department, North Star Restoration, K5 Construction, and Coast to Coast Marketing. It's Wausau West hosting Marshfield in high school football. Live, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 on 98.9 WXCO, online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction. Again, thanks to K5 Construction for their support of the program here on 98.9 WXCO. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. Again, coming up later in the program, we'll have three different student-athlete guests. We'll be talking to Blake Bankston of the DC Everest Evergreens, their senior running back, coming up at 7:06, and then a couple of area volleyball standouts, Newman Catholic's Lily Shields and DC Everest Kirsten Hall at 7:25. But right now, it is time to talk to the head football coach of the Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Chargers. Again, it's been a great run for Witt-Birn in recent years, and off to a 4-2 start this season. Very happy to welcome back to the program Coach Jason Rieck. And Coach, first of all, thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, 4-2 so far this season, and it's been a pretty good run of success for your program recently. Going into this season, I know that you had to replace a quarterback, and obviously every year there's the replacement of some pretty good seniors. But going into this season, what was the mindset? What were maybe the question marks? And have you been able to accomplish what you thought this team would accomplish here in the first 2/3 of the regular season?
Yeah, last year we were a senior-dominant team. I think we had 16, maybe 18 seniors. So when you lose that many, it's hard to replace. And you can only hope that the younger class can step up. And we knew that going into this year, we only had 5 or 6 coming back. So we were going to rely on a lot of young underclassmen to step up. And I think we're working on. We're still working on getting there, but it's moving in the right direction right now.
And these are the types of seasons when you kind of decide or figure out if you have a good team or if you have a good program, right? Like, because you've had that senior leadership and so many of those good players on that nice run that you guys have been on. And so knowing that you lost a lot of those guys and your seniors were going to be much lower in numbers this year, did that change anything that you did in this past off season to prepare these guys for how things were going to be a little different this year?
No, I think I think our younger guys, they have a really good junior class right now. Heavy numbers. I want to say we got about 18. They've been chomping at the bit. They've been waiting in line. When it's a big senior class, they have to take their turn, and they get to taste a little bit of the success last year. Some of those blowout victories they got to play. But moving forward, I think it helped them. I think people look past us this year. When you lose 18 guys or so, how are you going to replace that? So I think the expectations that people had were, and even I think some of our own players, some of those seniors were, kind of doubting what kind of team are we going to have when you lose almost everybody. And you got to replace a lot of starters on both sides of the ball. I think, we're exceeding expectations, and we're giving every Friday night, whoever shows up, a good run.
Along that same line, starting off the year, just looking at your first 2 games, you had the road game at Bonduelle to start things off and fell to a always solid program, 28-19. And then even the next week, your second non-conference game against Tomahawk from the GNC. That was a game that was pretty tight right down to the end before earning a win. Did those 2 games help those guys that were stepping in maybe learn a little bit about what it takes on Friday nights and help you get ready for the start of the conference season?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we kind of went those ways, too. I mean, the last 2 non-conference teams just, they didn't want to play, and I guess that's a credit to us and how successful we've been and continue to be. Bonduelle reached out, and that's always an old rivalry matchup, so I was happy to get back on board. And they were going into I want to say preseason ranked in the top 10. I think they're just back up there now. So you knew that they were going to be a good team, and they were returning a lot. And and truthfully, it was one of those things where our inexperience, that's why we lost. Too many mistakes. You can't do that against a good team. So it's going to be an experience right off the get-go for us. Saying that, hey, we can compete with anybody. We just have to, not give them more opportunities. And Tomahawk, we knew that they had we scrimmaged them a couple years ago, and we knew that they had a good younger class, and they got some really good talented athletes. So it's good not to have just 2 pushover games right away to kind of say, hey, this is varsity football now, and they got to step up.
Yeah, and obviously you guys have had a great start to the season, and knowing the situation you guys were in with having some unproven guys, and it's their opportunity to step up. How do you like how your schedule has played out for you this year, knowing that you guys are always going to go and compete for a conference championship, excuse me, with the likes of Amherst and Stratford, and to kind of have those guys towards the end of your schedule? Has that kind of worked out?
They already had
Stratford, but having like a good Colby team coming in this year, and kind of Amherst at the end, how does that feel, like knowing that you had some of those other games earlier?
Well, we went into the season knowing that, that CWC got switched around, and it's a juggernaut conference.
Yeah.
Look at the traditions with Colby and Stratford and Amherst, just those three alone, and like you said, like our continued success the last couple of years, like we're on the rise, and it's going to be playoff battle. We're going to be tested day in and Friday night. Every Friday night we're tested. It's not those pushover games where you can get ready. So we're hopefully that the schedule helps us, come in a couple more weeks if we can get one more win and make it to the playoffs. I think the conference really sets us up for a chance.
When you look at the results so far, you've seen some big numbers the last couple of weeks offensively. When you look at your team, do you consider the offense the strength? Do you consider the defense the strength? How do you look at it? Because I think you could argue either way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they go hand in hand with each other. We got 5 or 6 seniors, so we're relying on a lot of guys playing both ways. It hurt a couple weeks ago. We lost our starting running back. He broke his foot. Really good athlete. So we kind of had to revamp things going into it, the last couple of weeks going. We didn't want to change everything around, but we had to get playmakers the ball. So we didn't change the offense around, but we kind of changed the look of it to accommodate what happened. And sometimes it's the offense that's cooking, and sometimes it's the defense, and sometimes it's the
Coach, you kind of mentioned that it's both sides of the ball, and you lost a really nice player. Who are some of the guys that you rely on week in and week out, either for leadership or their performance on the field? Who are some of the names?
Yeah, Bryson Schmidt, he's a two-way starter at quarterback. He was our top running back last year. I think he led the team in most yards rushing last year. So he's back, but he's our quarterback this year. He's a safety on defense. Louis Shire's a returning middle linebacker for us, and he's getting some reps at running back now. Just a great defensive guy. Just has a knack for the ball. Really has a lot of potential, untapped potential, I should say, because the ceiling's the limit for him. Or the sky's the limit. I mean, it's crazy how well he reads and gets the ball. Seems like every tackle he's there. And then there are guys like Caden Yeager, Jet Rogowski that are skill positions who can make they have the speed to keep up with anybody, and they're not afraid to put their nose down. You got guys like Eddie Nowinski on the line who are playing both sides of the ball. So it really it's evenly spread out, I should say.
Sounds like a good group.
Again, we're talking to the head football coach at Witt-Birn High School, Jason Rieck, as the Chargers are 4-2, heading into the final third of the regular season, marching towards another playoff berth here on 98.9 WXCO. You mentioned Boone Shire, and you talked about his, almost limitless potential and ability. I was looking at some of his numbers beforehand, and even last year, he had like 140 plus tackles, and he's got a huge number of tackles already this season. What is it? Because, I mean, you don't see that often where you talk about, he's a middle linebacker. Obviously, you want him to be getting a lot of tackles, but man, I mean, the numbers just jump off the page. What is it about him that really makes him that special and that much of a producer on that side of the football?
He just gets it. In the 14 years I've coached football, he's by far, I would say, top 2 linebackers I've ever coached. Just his uncanny ability to get to the ball. I mean, he doesn't get blocked. I mean, Stratford did a phenomenal job against him, but I think you got a game plan for a guy like that. Just like on offense where defenses are up to stop certain guys. I think offenses have to account for Boone. Otherwise, he's going to be around the ball. Like he knows it. He's a student student of the game, and he's always going to be around that ball.
What about your quarterback, Bryson Schmidt? You said it last season. He ran for more than 700 yards, moved him into a new position, putting up some really good numbers. How has that transition been, and how do you see him as would you consider him, because I do see that he has been throwing the ball pretty well so far this season, averaging more than 10 yards per attempt. Has he become a true multi-faceted quarterback this season?
Yeah, he's still learning. He's still got the... he's a great athlete, and that's why he's drafted. And I would say probably in middle school we knew that he was going to be a future quarterback. So his freshman year, he took a lot of reps on the JV. Last year as a sophomore, he took a couple. He played a half here and there at quarterback just because he had to learn that. He had to learn that spot. We knew that it was going to be a spot in future years, and so it was always kind of in the back of his head. This is what the expectations were, and he's a great kid. He's a student of the game. He's constantly learning. Very coachable kid. So it's nice having a good leader back there too. Even as a junior, guys look up to him, and he truly makes the offense go.
Coach, you mentioned earlier the conference and how strong it is, and how it's changed a little bit this year. This week you have a matchup with Colby coming in, and a powerhouse team that you're not particularly familiar with in regards to playing in the past. How do you prepare for a team like Colby coming in that you haven't played recently?
You can't let them, you can't look at the record for them. I think they're 2-4 maybe.
Correct.
But they're such a strong tradition team. 2 or 3 years ago they're down at state. And last year we had a great team and a great run. They're just they're going to be well coached. You just got to prepare, and it's been nice because we've actually scrimmaged Colby, I would say, probably like the last 20 years. We have an idea. Obviously during a scrimmage, that's the first 2 weeks of practice, and a lot of people in certain spots where we have an idea what to expect. But overall, we know that they're going to be well coached and well prepared, and they're going to play their game.
And as you head now towards the final weeks of the regular season, and then, knock on wood, you're playing in the postseason, what are the areas that your team still is looking to take those strides in when you face really good competition where the season is on the line? You got that big Week 9 game at Amherst, obviously, out there, and then obviously really good teams, whoever you play in the postseason. What are the areas you have to get better at to be able to keep that season going once you get to that point in October?
Yeah, down there, it's such a mental part of the game. Everybody's going to be good. You get that first round. Maybe there's an offset, 1 versus 8. It could be a lopsided game. But after that first week, it's anybody's game. Every team is practice. They're hopefully everybody's hitting on that. They're all well-oiled machines, and they're hitting on all cylinders. You can't take care of what you can control. You can't make the game bigger than what it is already. These are high school kids. They usually go to school during the day, and they have lives outside of football as well. So all that comes into play. So, if you can play a good mental part of the game, you down the stretch and not make, limited mistakes, because mistakes are going to happen. You got to know that. And we're going to be able to limit them and rebound from them.
Coach, kind of going off of that a little bit, I always like to ask coaches when we have on, especially coaches from some of our smaller schools. You talked earlier about guys going both ways, and you just talked earlier about that these kids are student athletes. They're busy and students, but I would assume that the majority of, or not the majority, but quite a few of your kids probably are multi-sport athletes. So you kind of share them with other programs and teams, and what that looks like in the summer. How does that work at Witt-Birn? Like, as coaches of all the sports and the different seasons, do you guys work really well together in sharing kids? And how do you help the kids and the families kind of balance that, both in season and out of season, in particular in the summer?
Yeah, it's tough. When you're a small community like that, you rely on everybody. The basketball team relies on some athletes from the football team, and the baseball, and they all have to work together. So you have to work with all coaches. If not, it's not going to be successful. You're not going to be successful across the board. And it's kind of nice, I guess, with you doing also the baseball you know, I'll recommend the weight room. I'll encourage that. And during the summer, we stay away from the varsity basketball nights. And realistically, giving my kids a lot of say in it. I don't want them to have to choose between going to I don't want them to have to pick a sport. I want them to play all the sports. I want them to have, look back and go, hey, what's your favorite sport? Whatever sport you're in. So I think, having that support from coaches is really big for students and for student athletes, and that gets them to want to play more, I think.
It must make it a lot easier, though, not battling the baseball coach. Being able to...
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know when those games are so contact days over the summer and the summer lifts, we don't have to worry about running into any game problems or and whatnot. So but I do tell you what, from a football standpoint, I mean, the biggest thing is I think is the weight room in the summer. The conditioning from the kids standpoint. It does help not having to worry about like a football league where there's a baseball summer league and there's basketball has their summer league. So I think from a football standpoint, it's nice not having that summer league where they have to fight one more night. Be cold one more night.
Yeah, the one sport left that doesn't have club travel ball. That is what makes football great.
Absolutely. They have a 7-on-7 league, but I don't think those are as, those are probably more relaxed.
Yeah. Coach, anything else for Coach Rieck?
No, it's just great talking to you. Congratulations on a great start to the season, and good luck this week and the rest of the way.
Yeah, I appreciate everything, guys. I appreciate the time and having me on, and hopefully we 3 games left. I think one more game is guaranteed us playoffs, and we're just looking for the Friday night. Hopefully we can make that happen.
Absolutely. Coach Jason Rieck of the Witt-Birn Chargers, again, getting set for Colby on Friday night. Again, Coach, thank you very much, and hopefully we can talk again sometimes in the future.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys.
Absolutely. Again, always wonderful to get a chance to talk to some of these area head coaches. And before we take the time out, I mean, Witt-Birn is such an interesting football tradition because they have so many years. I think it was like 20 plus years where they're in the playoffs, where it wasn't as easy to get into the playoffs. I mean, when they started that run, there was fewer playoff slots. Then they had a decade where it was really a big struggle. And then how many years? About 6-7 years now. It's been really an outstanding program, including a trip to a state semifinal a few years back. It's a great tradition, and it's really been a good renaissance, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. At Wausau West, we have an outstanding offensive line coach. His name is Josh Nowinski, and he was the defensive coordinator on those state championship teams and some of those runner-up teams. So have heard a lot about those programs and those teams and how they were absolutely rolling and how good. And it was actually what was their head coach's name, who went to Rhinelander when he left?
Jim Moore.
Yeah, when Jim Moore and Josh kind of and other coaches for sure kind of read it together. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Coach Rieck was on one of those teams that had a really nice run. So it is very good. Even talking about Colby earlier, right? They've had some outstanding, and we're down for a minute there and seem to be back in that form in a tough conference now. But yeah, to see the schools who've been there and be successful again, Wittenberg is definitely one of those, and it's great to see.
We're going to talk about what Witt-Birn did last week. We're going to talk about a pretty rough one for Colby last week. We'll talk about the CWC Large, the CWC Small, and 8-player football, what happened last week as well, coming up next. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes, back in 1 minute. Here on the Big High School Sports Show, brought to you by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday afternoon, it's a battle of 4-1 teams in high school football as the Newman Catholic Cardinals travel to Port Edwards. Catch the game at a special time, Friday, with a pregame show starting at 3:35 and the opening kickoff at 4 p.m. live on 98.9 and 1230 WXCO, online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Newman Catholic High School football on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by Red Robin Restaurants, the Cloverville Credit Union, Sun Printing, and North Star Restoration. It's Newman Catholic at Port Edwards in high school football, Friday afternoon at a special time. Pre-game show at 3:35 and the opening kickoff at 4 on your home for Newman Catholic High School sports. 98.9 WXCO, online at bullfallsradio.com. mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show brought to you by K5 Construction. K5 Construction is a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence. From design and planning to the final construction, K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. So K5 Construction presenting the Big High School Sports Show with Jason Foster and Chad Holmes. Let's talk about what happened in the CWC Large. We just talked a bit about that conference. Again, a very solid conference in Stratford. We were talking off the air. This Stratford team right now looks dominant. And to beat Colby 49-0, and I know Colby may not be the same team that they've been in the past, but they're still very good. A very good program, and Stratford just made it look easy. 49-0. 6-0, 4-0 for Stratford, 2-4, 2-2 for Colby. Jack Tubbs, we said last week, I think it was like 24 for 27. This past week, not quite as good. 14 of 17, but the number that stood out: 17 pass attempts, 14 completions, 403 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He had touchdown passes of 65, 75, 76, 20, and 21. We've talked about this. The Stratford program over the last number of years has put that big pass game into the mix along with what they do so well, running the football. And Jack Tubbs is having himself a monster last couple of weeks.
Yeah, those numbers are video game numbers. If he were a college quarterback, he'd probably be in the Heisman talks. Pretty amazing. And yeah, Stratford is loaded. We kind of mentioned too that not only is this conference, I mean, when you look at the tradition, we just talked about Witt-Birn, Amherst, how many state championships do they have in their history? They play Edgar, perennial state powerhouse state champion, in a non-conference game, and then they probably took arguably one of the second or third best teams in that conference and moved them over to this one. So it's not like they get these wins and just blow over easy opponents. I mean, there's a couple in here that aren't putting up a lot of fight this year, but they're a little battle tested, and they should be ready for the playoffs.
Amherst stays perfect. They're 6-0 as well, 4-0 in the conference. They beat a stingy Spencer Columbus squad last week, 28-13. Spencer Columbus 1-5, 0-4 in the conference. It was scoreless at halftime. I mean, all of a sudden, Spencer Columbus, they got the undefeated Amherst Falcons, scoreless at halftime. You go into the locker room, you go out there, you're ready to go, you kick it off, and then Tyler Loken for Amherst, a 94-yard kickoff return to start the third quarter, gave Amherst the lead. They would go on to win it. Michael Glodowski, 8 of 11, 100 yards and a touchdown. Sam Stukzinski, 20 rushes, 107 yards for Amherst as well. But man, oh man, you're trying to pull off a big upset. You got yourself even going to halftime, and then a big special teams play really turned around that game.
Yeah, and these are the types of games where if you're Spencer Columbus, you got to find the victory in this, right? Not in the record overall, obviously, but to know that you competed with a team like that through halftime. I mean, there's definitely things to build off of. Obviously, 0-4 in conference, 1 win overall, so it's a tough season, but this is definitely something that these kids will be able to reflect back on and say, hey, remember when we had Amherst 0-0? And I think it's a building block for them moving forward, and they haven't been getting completely blown out week to week. I think they are making some strides and heading in the right direction.
And the problem has been the schedule. We talk about this all the time. You have to look at the schedule. And they've already played Stratford. They've already played Witt-Birn. They've already played Amherst. They went on the road to Wyoming. Those are the top 4 teams. Now they got Loyal Greenwood. That's a winnable game at home. Then you got Colby. Who knows?
Right.
You have Colby's still gonna be tough.
Yep.
And then you got Marathon, who's been banged up injury-wise. So again, when you look at Spencer Columbus, they've been much more competitive this year than they were last year. They had a kind of a rough go of it. And I think, again, it shows the depth of that conference. A team like that can take Amherst. Is there any worry for Amherst to have that kind of game?
I don't think so. I mean, if you lose that one, I think you come out with some worry. But it sounds like they definitely, whatever they said at halftime worked for them too, scoring 28 points in the second half, having special team success, and coming out 6-0.
Wittenberg Burnhamwood 52, Loyal Greenwood 28. Chargers 4-2 in the conference, 3-1 overall. Loyal Greenwood 1-5 overall, 0-4 in the league. Bryson Schmidt 9 of 13, 181 yards, 4 touchdowns and a pick, 12 rushes, 85 yards and a touchdown. And it does look like Wittenberg Burnhamwood is getting better as the season goes on. I mean, they've put up some big point numbers in recent weeks. They got, I would say, a couple of winnable games coming up before that big Week 9 game at Amherst, but they're putting themselves in a position not only to be in the playoffs, but put themselves in a position to have maybe a decent seed, depending on, again, it's hard to project at this point what it may be, but they have a possible, it looks like 6-3 at the worst, maybe, I mean, if Spencer Columbus can give Amherst a game, maybe Witt-Birn, but it does look like a team that's getting better, and again, Schmidt stepping in at quarterback after being a running back last season has been very impressive.
Yeah, and I think this is when we talk about the programs and winning programs and how are you a winning program? It's your culture, right? The graduated 18 seniors have 5 back, and they understand the expectations of the program. And I think the other thing that makes Wittenberg tough matchup down the stretch and into the playoffs is they're really good on both sides of the ball. They have outstanding defenders. They're, like you said, they're putting it together on offense. So yeah, I think they're a good team that traditionally has a very good program, and they know how to win late in the season, including the playoffs.
Wyoming Fremont putting themselves in a position to earn a playoff spot. They're now 500, 3-3, 2-2 in the conference. They topped Marathon 36-6 last week. Marathon now 2-4, 1-3. Red Raiders just devastated by injury right now. When you're losing your top 2 quarterbacks and you're losing the player that you kind of build around, it makes it so difficult. It's been a real rough go of it for the Raiders the last few weeks. Cameron Silkey for Wyoming was 6 of 13 passing, 62 yards and a touchdown and an interception, 9 rushes, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dawson Lind had 16 rushes, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns as well for Wyoming Fremont. Blake Kraft, the third-string quarterback for Marathon, was 7 of 14, 67 yards. Garrett Bracewell, who's such a talented athlete, still had 4 catches for 31 yards. Nathan Hanish, 13 rushes, 54 yards for Marathon. But without truthers, it just takes away so much on both sides of the ball for Marathon.
Yeah, how many times have we seen this and talked about it in various games this season as we look into the Friday night matchups is what a difference it makes. I mean, take Gavin, his brother, take Garrett Bracewell and look at his numbers versus when they had true thirds versus when they have their third string, and that's nothing against their quarterback Blake Kraft.
Yeah, he was moved from a different position.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
At the high school level, you're not 3 deep at quarterback, probably, are you?
No, not even a little bit. Even when Coach talked about from Witt-Birn talked about their last year's running back or whatever. But if you're the number 3, chances are he probably wasn't playing a lot of varsity football the year before. So, yep, tough for them. And this is kind of where you go back to in a season like this. You find the wins within the game for them, and that's probably where Marathon's at right now.
CWC Small / Merriwood, Abbotsford still perfect, 6-0, 4-0, winning at Pittsville 56-20. Pittsville, I think, much better than 1-5 record would indicate, but they've had a real tough schedule. They're 1-3 in the conference. Urban Aguilera, 7 of 11, 154 and a touchdown, 9 rushes, 156 yards and 2 scores. Abbotsford had 4 rushers with at least 96 yards, and they had 568 yards rushing as a team, 13.5 yards per carry. Logan Zickert, 10 of 15, 224 yards and a touchdown for Pittsville. Boy, I mean, I thought that was going to be a more competitive game. Abbotsford right now is looking very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, they are just a machine rushing the football, including their quarterback at this point, which makes it. I mean, then you look at the passing attempts usually, and I mean, so they're running some play action stuff, they're running some screen, could probably taking a couple shots, but they might have to get a few more of those attempts down the road passing it to be successful.
700 yards total offense. 700.
Yeah,
that's a lot of yards.
And what I love so much about Abbotsford and talking about Abbotsford is what their coach said a couple weeks ago too, that some of these kids have never played football before. Like, it's not that they just didn't come out for football, but they move into the community. They have different backgrounds and cultures, and so to see what they're doing there and the culture that they're creating and the success that they're having is exciting and really good for them.
Edgar beat Assumption 48-0. Edgar 5-1, 4-0 in the conference. Assumption still looking for that first W. 35-0 after one. Will Hackle 4 rushes, 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. Assumption -1 total yards, but Edgar just right now not getting challenged. And again, I know you said it. Coach Sins knows this drill, but it's still going to be a little difficult where they're not being challenged at all.
Yeah, Will Heckle, four rushing attempts, and I mean great numbers, right? 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. But will he be healthy and fresh? Absolutely. but he will not be as battle tested as some of his opponents that he'll see in the playoffs.
Auburndale still right there. Only lost in conference to Edgar. They're 5-1, 3-1 in the conference, beating Pacelli 43-14. Pacelli now 1-4, 1-3 in the conference. Blake Robb 8 of 10, 180 yards, 4 touchdowns. Trevor Trowbridge 3 catches, 92 yards, a touchdown for Auburndale. Jacob Williams for Pacelli was 7 of 10, 68 yards and a touchdown. They have to give a tip of the cap to Pacelli's Bryce Flaker. He had a big night on the ground, 197 yards on 23 carries. But Auburndale looking very strong and good for Flaker. That's a big number for against a pretty good team.
Yeah, and those are the victories you look for, right? If you're Pacelli, I mean that's a heck of a game for Flaker, and when you look at the score of this one and the attempts, throwing the ball kind of almost feels like a Sunday night 7-on-7 league with 8 for 10, 180 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Iola Scandinavia still right there in that conference, 5-1 overall, 3-1 in the league. They shut down Rochel 47-0. Hornets 1-5, 0-4 in the conference, 47-0 at halftime. Jensen Rice 3 rushes, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. 2 of 2, 33 yards and a score. Let's go right to the 8-player before we hit the top of the hour timeout. Newman Catholic went to Menominee Indian, beat the Eagles 38-14. Newman now 4-1. Menominee Indian 0-5. Carson Rice, quarterback for Newman, 11 of 17, 120 yards and 2 scores. Had 7 rushes for 87 yards and a touchdown. Brock Gasper, 12 rushes, 76 yards. Stephen Clement, 4 receptions, 50 yards and a touchdown. It was 38-6 at halftime. Cardinals did what they needed to do, stayed healthy, and they have a big game coming up against Port on Friday. But they did what they needed to do. That was stay healthy in that game.
And are they getting healthier as well, do you know?
Yes. There's still a couple guys that are going to be gone pretty much all the time.
Right.
I mean, it's... Yeah.
But at this point, I would have to think for them, any single person they could get back probably makes a difference for them.
Helps for Newman. So they, again, wonderful job to be 4-1 at this point with all the injuries so far. Owen Withy, I mean, boy, they got to be the best team right now in 8-player. They are smashing everybody they run into. They beat Alma Center Lincoln, who's 2-3. It's not like they lost every game this season. 62-0 back-to-back shutouts for Owen Withy. Also, Gilman, 4-1, beat Thorpe, who's 3-2, 61-18. Rib Lake is now 3-2. They beat their old co-op mates, Prentice, 46-32, and Phillips beat Flambeau, 52-26. But got some really good teams. Those old Cloverwood teams. Newman was an old Cloverwood team. Owen Withy was an old Cloverwood team. Gilman was an old Cloverwood team. Thorpe was an old Cloverwood team. Lots of old Cloverwood teams are now powering up in the 8-player ranks.
Yeah, and I think that
And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show brought to you by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, online at BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. I'm Chad Holmes, and very happy to welcome our student athlete guest for this week from DC Everest Senior High School, senior running back Blake Bankston. Blake, thank you for coming on in.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, and a lot to talk about. We'll talk about your individual story coming up in just a few moments, but let's start with the team, because this season, a brand new head coach. It's really been quite a story this season. Winners of 5 games in a row. As you've looked at this season, starting with maybe the offseason with a new coach coming in, was this expected? Were these some of the goals that you had, that you were going to be able to come out and play really good football early?
I mean, yeah, I definitely think we all knew we had talent to be as good as we are right now. And, I mean, nothing really changed other than the what the coaches expected and the standard that we had. I mean, they just kind of expected a lot more out of us because of how our last season ended and what we did. And I mean, they really just pushed us to be the best we could all off season, and everyone was putting in the work together, which kind of like just helped us all bond as a team more as brothers. And I mean, I feel like it's shown on the field now that we've been putting in the work together all summer long. So
how important is the off season for anybody who's not maybe part of a high school football team? It's not a case where you come in for the first day of practice in early August and then say, okay, we're going to put it together for, I think, about 2.5 weeks before the first game. How important is the off season in terms of setting the tone both physically and also as a unit, group leadership in that like?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. This year we did add like a contact prep thing that was new this year, which has been huge, I think, preventing a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball. So, I mean, everything that we do in the offseason translates, and, I mean, that's where all the work is put in, really. It's just a grind over the summer, coming in lifting 3 days a week and playing football 2 days a week. So, I mean, it's been fun. It's been long, but it's showing now. So
when you talk about injuries, I guess you have to go back to last season, and for the Bankston clan, I think it was a tough season. And obviously, and I said to you, we had your brother on last season on this program, Caden, and unfortunately he got injured, and then you got injured as well. How frustrating was that? Because I imagine as brothers, you were looking forward to that, him being a senior last season, you being a big factor as well. You obviously plays into a sophomore as well, but that being his last season, I had to be disappointing not to be out there as much as maybe you thought you would be.
Yeah, that was pretty disappointing when Caden went down, and I mean, I knew I had to step up a little more because going down a running back when we were like a 2 running back set team, we just kind of changed how we were running our offense, and I knew I had to step up into a bigger role. And then going into that homecoming game, it just kind of like right after that play, it kind of hit me, and it's like, dang, now we're both out, and we got to try and help the backups after me get in. So, I mean, that was pretty disappointing having Caden's senior season supposed to be his best season, and then me go down 2 weeks later. So
again, we're talking to Blake Bankston of DC Everest, senior running back for the Evergreens, who are 5-1 overall, 4-0 in the WVC, getting set for a big one against Chippewa Falls coming up on Friday night. At this season, again, I mentioned to you when you came in that you started off with a real tough non-conference game against Rice Lake, but since then, 5 wins in a row. What's been the key? What has been the key within this group that's allowed you not only to win these football games, but for the most part, be fairly dominant in these games?
Yeah, after week 1, that kind of like got us on our horse and realized that, like, hey, we got to get going. I mean, Rice Lake is a very tough opponent, and we were expecting them to be good, but we came out decent in the first half, and we kind of got shut down in the second. And so ever since then, I mean, I feel like the guys have been like, okay, this is our season. We got to get this going. And, I mean, up front on our offense, it's been amazing to see with the past 2 years how much it's improved and how much work they're putting in, and they don't get as enough recognition as they deserve because, I mean, they're really doing it all up there for my run game and stuff.
Well, who are they? Because it's always good to give some shout-outs.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar Latondras on the left.
Who was on the show earlier this year?
Yeah, Chris Ferrario, a freshman, coming to play left guard this year. He's been amazing. He's going to be great coming up. And then Jake Higgins or Will playing center with Jake going down. Will stepping up was huge. And Carson Zesch at right guard and Ian Cole at right tackle.
Another key has to be the balance. You have a veteran quarterback, back with Logan George. I know he got knocked out last week. Is he okay?
Oh, yeah, he's fine. We were just being precautious with him.
Okay, very good. But to have somebody with the experience that Logan has, the ability to be able to put up some pretty big numbers. The game that I saw in person a couple of weeks ago when he played Wausau West, to have Xavier Edwards come up with some big catches as well. The balance seems to be there. I imagine as a runner, that opens things up for you as well, having that pass game.
Yeah, it's really nice to have Logan take control of the offense when we have so many RPOs in on our playbook where he can control the game, and they can't just try and stop the run because we've got 2 good wide receivers and 2 tight ends that can catch the ball. So, I mean, it's been great with this offense. I love the position we're in right now.
What was the injury you had last year?
I tore my MCL.
How was that then in terms of, obviously you have to, get back to 100%. How was that process, and were there any doubts going into this season coming off an injury?
I mean, not really. I kind of knew that the work I had to put in because I'm a big wrestler too, so I wanted to make it back for my junior wrestling season. So right after I got the injury and they told me that I most likely wouldn't be back for the wrestling season, I was like, I'm gonna make it back. So I mean, I really just put my head down and recovered, and then as soon as I could, I started my physical therapy and did as much as I could, and I was able to make it back right before the big part of the season. So that was really fun. And I mean, coming into the football season, I know running and wrestling is a lot different, but I mean, it really hasn't bothered me at all. So it's been great.
Going back, the first time you were on the mat in a competitive situation, coming off an injury, what was that like? I mean, did you appreciate it more after going through a bit of a struggle with injury?
Yeah, it was right. That first match didn't go as planned for me. I wasn't ready conditioning wise, but it was so fun to be back out there. And I don't know, I miss competing a lot, so it was really fun to get back on the mat.
Are you involved in any other sports besides football and wrestling?
I play golf, but that's not really like a competitive sport for me. I just do it for fun.
I tell you, there's a number of guys that are involved in sports, and it's almost as though you get to the spring, it's almost like you want a taste of it, but maybe not quite at the intensity level that you've gone through. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. And it's just playing with my friends every day, so I mean, it can't get better than that.
Between football and wrestling, do you have a favorite sport?
It's hard to say. I mean, when I'm in the season, when I'm in football season, that's by far my favorite, but wrestling is just as fun when it's wrestling season, so it's hard to say, but if I had to pick one, I'd choose football.
What did you start first?
I don't know. I'd say probably wrestling. And then, I started both really young, so I started wrestling at like 4 or 5 and played football the same year probably.
It may not be a very good question because you didn't really have that momentum last year.
Yeah.
But when you do have success maybe in the fall during the football season, are you able to carry some of that into the winter when you get to a new team and a new situation?
I mean, I think so, yeah. I just have more confidence, I'd say, in myself and knowing that I can compete at a high level and with a lot of confidence, so.
We'll talk more about sports, but let's step away from sports. Obviously, as a multi-sport athlete, that keeps you very busy. But when you want to maybe get away from it, if you want to step away from the intensity of sports, is there anything you like to do?
I like to hang out with my friends a lot on the lake. Like this summer, we went up there like almost every weekend, just spending time on the water and with my family and stuff. But, I mean, I also like to lift a lot. I do CrossFit and stuff, so, I mean, that's all fun to me.
That's something else I've noticed when talking to a lot of the guys that participate in football or any other sport, that some of the things that we would consider work, you guys really love doing it. And I imagine that makes it a lot easier to be in the condition and to be able to reach the goals that you want to, because you do find it as fun and work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
When you are in school, do you have a favorite class?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'd probably say math. It's tough this year, but it's fun once you get the hang of it.
Well, the thing about math, and I've also noticed that, is that when you got these guys that are putting up big numbers, you got to be able to keep track of the big numbers, and you're knocking on a door of 1,000 yards rushing already so far this season. Are you hoping to continue to be involved in athletics in some way at the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I just got to finish the senior year off strong, and I mean, hopefully I'll go somewhere and play at the next level.
Do you have any ideas in terms of when you get done with school and sports and everything else, what you'd like to do for as an adult, or is that something that's still being developed?
Yeah, I mean, it's still up in the air. I mean, I want to stay in the sports industry, I guess, a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, like, whether that's like a personal or athletic trainer or something like that. Just something to stay in it. I like sports a lot, so that's something I want to keep doing.
Again, we're talking to Blake Bankston, senior for DC Everest, here on the Big High School Sports Show, brought to you by K5 Construction. Let's get back to sports here. Do you have a favorite rival? Whether it's in wrestling or in football, somebody that a team that you face off against that really gets the juices going and that you want to win, maybe even that little bit extra than anybody else?
I guess it's most likely probably West. It's always a fun week to play them, and when we win, it's it's nice. It's a good feeling. So
I have to admit, and again, I broadcast West, so obviously I see when Everest plays West, and I think it's on both sides. There's that intensity. Also, I noticed when I looked at, I think it's like on the DC Everest, either Instagram or something along those lines, they always ask the players, like, what's their favorite moment. I think almost everybody I read said last year beating Wausau West in like week 9 of the season. So, and even just a couple, we were talking about this, the atmosphere, where you have a lot of folks are able to come over from Everest when it's over at Tom Field or over at Steam for Wausau West. There is an energy that. Yeah. Can you feel that on the field?
For sure, definitely. I mean, both student sections are talking back and forth, and you can kind of feel it on the field. And, I mean, it gets you going for sure.
How important is the student section? I know they call it the Forest over at DC Everest, and they had a really nice crowd over at Tom Field I saw a couple of weeks ago. How important is having that support from your students, your friends that you see every day at school?
Yeah, I mean, for offense, it's kind of different because you don't want them too loud so you can't hear the snap count stuff. But it's definitely big for our defense because they 100% feed off the crowd and the sidelines energy. So on big downs, you got to get them going just so they can feel it, you know.
Does it feel like this season is going as quickly as it is? I mean, we're 6 games already into the season. You got 3 more. You're basically 2/3 of the way through the regular season. Then you're hoping for a nice long run in the postseason as well. But does it seem like it goes that quickly?
Oh, yeah, it's flying. I mean, I feel like just yesterday we just started summer training, so I mean, it's flying by. Yeah.
As you look forward, let's talk about this week because we were talking that this is a major challenge. This is a Chippewa Falls team. That Big Rivers is very tough. I mean, everybody seems as though have some really great competition over in the western part of the state. And, of course, they beat Stevens Point to start off the season. That kind of set a goal right there that, they're a very solid football team. As you've been preparing for this week's game, what has jumped out about Chi High that you guys have to be ready for this week?
I mean, they're a really tough team. They've got some good athletes on their team, and they play fast and physical. So, I mean, we've played some good competition, but, I mean, this is definitely a step up, I'd say, and we got to be ready to fire on all cylinders. So,
how would you describe your coach, your new head coach? First year, because the thing was, I had a chance to talk to him here right after he got hired as the head coach last spring. Came across really a nice guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. How would you describe him as a head coach? Because obviously being the head man is different than what he was. He was obviously, as an offensive player, you were involved with him previously. What's he like?
I mean, I love him. I love how he coaches and his standard that he brings.
Coach Mitchell, I should say, because people, I always assume everybody knows everybody here, but Coach Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, I love him personally. I work with him a little bit. He's more of a quarterback, wide receiver coach, but he brought all over his plays, and he like develops our offense a lot. So, I mean, I love everything he's been doing. He's a really down-to-earth guy. Like, you can have a conversation with him, and then when it's time to turn it on, he's really competitive, and I like that he likes to win, and I mean, our whole team wants to win, and that's what he's bringing is wins. So it's nice to have.
I try not to say it out loud very much when I'm over at West, but I actually did go to DC Everest many a year ago, and during that era, there was a lot of winning. There was some of those championships that are listed on the wall. I was actually going to school then. Does tradition mean anything at DC Everest now? It's been quite a while before, as I get very old and looking at it. But does that winning tradition, when you go out onto the field, when you see Stephen Hagen Field, the legendary head coach, when you see those championship balls near the scoreboard, does that still mean something at DC Everest?
Oh yeah, for sure. We're definitely trying to bring that tradition back, and we do like a motivation every week on Thursday before our games, and we just had 3 coaches from that era come in, and I mean, that definitely got our team fired up, and we're ready to bring some championships back to DC Everest, and this is just the start with Coach Mitchell, so it's going to be fun to see.
A year ago in the Level 1 playoffs, you went to Neenah, and it was not a good night.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And for the Evergreens, do you think this team took something away from that?
Definitely.
That you're going to try to use it when you get to the playoffs?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We can get to the playoffs. We already got it clinched, but that's not our goal, is to make it to the playoffs. We definitely want to make a run this year, and that's our goal. Is we're gonna keep winning. So,
is seeding important?
Oh yeah, definitely. We want a home game for sure. So we gotta keep the roll that we're on. We can't stop because home game is completely different than going going to play somewhere else. So.
That said, you got a couple of, again, not just High, you got Stevens Point coming up as well. I know that it's always about this week, but with the conference still out there, what do you think about Stevens Point? How do you look at that game coming up? Because actually last season you guys went over there and it was a game that went right down to the wire. That really kind of turned the conference championship on its head for Stevens Point. As you look for that and a potential conference championship, what do you think of Stevens Point? Yeah,
they're going to be a tough team. I mean, we know they got some stud players over there, and that's where Coach Mitchell came from. So we definitely got a little rivalry with them. But yeah, we're taking it 1 week at a time, but we're definitely looking forward to that game. We're ready to get our revenge on them, I guess. Yeah.
We always wrap up our discussions with our student athletes asking a question, especially for a senior, because you've gone through it. And for you yourself, I mean, you were a varsity player as a sophomore and a junior, now as a senior as well. Based on what you've learned, both in terms of football and wrestling and everything you've done at DC Everest, for a younger student athlete that's just coming in, whether it's a freshman or a sophomore starting their journey that ultimately leads to their graduation, what piece of advice would you give to that young person that's just starting based on what you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's going to come easy. You know, you're going to have to put your head down and grind no matter what, whether you're a starter or you're on the practice squad or whatever. You're going to have to grind to get to where you want to be. So, I mean, if you're not seeing the results right away, you just got to keep working, and eventually they'll come.
Well, number one, congratulations on coming back after, getting banged up last season. Congrats on what I think it's like 911 yards, if I'm not mistaken.
I think something like that.
Something like that. So you're knocking on the door of 1,000 yards already. And best of luck at Chippewa coming up.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Blake Bankston, the DC Everest running back, came off a nice night last week against Eau Claire North with 14 rushes for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. Our student athlete guest this week. We're going to come back with more as we continue here on the Big High School Sports Show, brought to you by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday night, the Marathon High School football team plays host to longtime rival Stratford in a Central Wisconsin Conference large division matchup. Hear all the exciting action live on the Sports 2 stream of BullFallsRadio.com and the Civic Media Radio app, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. Marathon football on WXCO is brought to you by Marathon Parts City, Four Seasons Screen Printing, Brickners of Little Chicago, County Materials, the People's State Bank, Marathon Cheese, the Dirks Group, Marathon Family Dentistry, the Marathon Athletic Club, Fisher Transportation, Morgan Sand and Gravel, Rip Falls Fabrication, and BS Taxidermy. It's Marathon hosting Stratford in high school football. Friday, live on the Sports 2 stream of BullFallsRadio.com and the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:40 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. and also on tape delay following Wausau West football on 98.9 WXCO. And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show, brought to you by K5 Construction here on 98.9 WXCO. No laughing here, young ladies. No, along with Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks to Blake Bankston of DC Everest, their senior running back, for joining us again. We pre-recorded that last night because Blake is busy this evening, but appreciated his time and coming on over here to pre-record. And now here live in studio, we have a pair of area volleyball standouts as we get set for a special matchup coming up next week for the neighbor's place. We have from Newman Catholic High School, Lily Shields, and we have from DC Everest High School, Kirsten Hall. Thank you, ladies, for coming on over.
Thank you for having us.
Before we talk about the event itself, let's talk about your teams, because you both are performing for volleyball programs that are very strong and having good seasons. And we'll start with DC Everest and Kirsten Hall here. You're in the Wisconsin Valley Conference in second place. You have a big matchup tomorrow night against the Marshfield Tigers, who are in first place. I had a chance to see you and your team at Wausau West a couple of weeks ago. Very impressive 3-set win. Generally, how's the season gone, and is your team, did they have high expectations coming into this season? And as we get close to the playoffs, what is the feeling around DC Everest?
Yeah, I think our expectations are always kind of just to win conference, and obviously with Marshfield, it's they're the big stepping stone. So tomorrow will definitely show how that goes. But playoffs around the corner. It's crazy. It's only a couple weeks away. We obviously want to perform, hopefully get a plaque at least.
It'll be
we'll
nice.
see.
It'll be nice to play them fresh because I know a couple weeks ago at the conference leg that was at Wausau West, you guys had a tough 5-set match against Spash to start the day, and that kind of wore you guys. I think it wore you guys down a little bit. So by the time you got to Marshfield in round 3, you guys were pretty wiped out. So I'm excited to see how that one plays out for you guys.
Yeah, me too.
What is the strengths of your team? Maybe along with yourself, and who else are the strengths on your team who have been impressive for your team so far this season?
I'd say Sydney Geis, our setter. She's really a strong, valuable player. Also, our outsides, Ryden Lerke and Ella Koff. Ella Koff has had a really good season. She's a sophomore. It's great to see her just be amazing, really.
Real quickly, I noticed you do have some younger players on this team. I mean, I don't know if it's unusual, but to be at the level that you are right now, battling for a conference championship and doing well with the young performers, how has the mixture been, having some performers that have been around for a couple of years and then having some that are joining the team? How has the team chemistry been?
I'd say it's good, and it definitely helps having, like, people with experience and then people with little experience. You're able to kind of, like, not, like, mentor them, but, like, be an example, and it definitely helps. Like, I know when I was a sophomore, I had seniors that I look up to, so it's kind of cool to, like, be that senior now.
And Lily, Newman Catholic, I was looking at some of the results for your squad, and number one, you play everybody. I mean, you talk about a Division V school that just plays almost a Wisconsin Valley Conference schedule. You're playing all these Valley teams so far this season. I noticed recently you got a bit of a winning streak because you're playing a lot of teams that are basically either your size or just a little bit bigger. What's the season been like? Because obviously coming off a trip to the state championship game a year ago, expectations are probably very high. What's this season been like for Newman Catholic?
Yeah, for sure. Early on, we battled some injuries, but we've come back from that. And like you said, coming back from a state season last year, just having that motivation always in the gym makes it really fun. And we're really working right now to play more stress-free and just enjoy the moment because, like you said, playoffs is coming up. And, yeah, the season has gone. It's been very fun. Have some great matches. Yeah.
What is the situation? I'd heard that there was some injury issues. How is that? Are you back to full strength, or is that still an issue?
Yeah, we're back to full strength. At the beginning of conference plays, we had everyone back, but it was just like we were still getting into the groove of it. So it's nice now that we're finally getting our flow.
What do you take away from the trip to state from last year that you hope to use as you get towards the end of the regular season and into the postseason? Because obviously it was a great run, came so very close in the end. What do you take away from an experience like that when you went to Green Bay last year?
Yeah, I feel like we really take away that like anything's possible, and we can get back there this year if we put in the work. So I think it's just giving everyone a little more confidence, and obviously came up short last year, but again, that just gives us all the more motivation.
Next Tuesday will be Everest and Newman over at DCE for the event to benefit the Neighbors Place. Let's talk about the event itself, and then we'll talk about what it's like for you girls to match up against each other. What is this event all about?
I think just community, just bringing everyone together. Obviously, we're like two schools close to each other, so just get as many people in the gym as possible and like celebrate the good cause.
Is there anything we should know about this event in terms of, I believe, and again, I should pull up the information. I had it sent to me real fast here. But I know that they really are trying to go beyond the call in terms of getting people involved. Basically, all proceeds, again, benefiting the Neighbors Place. There'll be a silent auction. There'll be raffle baskets. All concession sales will be donated, and it's a donation to get in. They're not selling tickets, but basically if you pay at least $1 for a donation, you get in. When there's something like this going on, I've seen this at other events. We have the East-West game that comes up as well, where there's a lot of stuff going on. As athletes, do you try to wrap your arms around that? Do you try to focus on what you're out there to accomplish in terms of facing a good opponent and winning the match? How do you go about it mentally to try to play the game when there's a lot of other stuff that seems to be going on around it?
Yeah, I feel like before and after, obviously, including like all the extra things that go along with the game, but during the game just kind of focusing on playing volleyball and having fun. Obviously it's so fun to play Everest. All of us are friends, so it's just a super fun chill game.
Yeah.
Is this is at least the second year, right? Because I remember you came on and talked about it last year. Is it the second year? How many years have you guys been doing this?
It's done 5 times, but not consecutively.
Okay.
So this is the second year in a row.
Okay,
that
and
we've done it in high school.
And do you do the same charitable place each year? Has it always been the neighbor's place,
Yeah.
or do you guys switch it up from year to year?
Yeah, always volley for your neighbors. That's like the saying, basically.
What is it like when you face? I mean, you two came in here and you've been talking the entire time. I mean, it's like I don't know what if you've known each other for a long time. What is your relation? Do you know each other exceptionally well?
Yeah,
Yes.
we used to play club together
Okay.
for like a couple of years
Yeah.
since like middle school days. So
And that's one of the aspects about volleyball. Club volleyball
Yeah.
is so vitally active, and a lot of players on high school teams play together then, and they go back and they play for the high school teams. What's it like when you do face somebody that's been a teammate, but in this case is on the other side of the net? Lily, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's so fun. There's definitely some friendly banter throughout the net. Like earlier in the season, Kurt and I, we had a scrimmage and we were talking through the net. I was trying to get her to hit into my hand so I could finally get a block, but she didn't do that for me. It's okay. It'll happen in the neighbor's place game.
sure. Okay.
And Kirsten, what about you? What's it like when you face people that, is it, I mean, I can tell right now you have this joy where you enjoy being around her. When you look across the net towards Lily or anybody else that you play a lot with on the club level, do you almost have to avoid eye contact at times because you have that relationship?
Yeah, it honestly just makes it so much more fun. Like, I just never get mad because I just look and I start laughing. Or, like, at the scrimmage, I went up to hit, and Lily's just like, oh, no. And I'm just, like, laughing mid-hit. So it just makes it a really fun game.
If I'm not mistaken, and again, maybe I am, last year, was it a 5-setter that you guys played?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, when you look at it, I mean, Newman Catholic, I mean, obviously very, very good, but at the same time, a much smaller school, DC Everest, very, very good in D1. At Everest, how do you look at this matchup? Do you feel like there's a lot to lose more than the gain when you face Newman, or is it that you know that this is a team that's capable of winning a state championship, and it is a good matchup going into the postseason?
Yeah, I think we definitely just look at it as a game to, like, kind of get better and, like, get better. And it's not like a win or, like, obviously we want to win, but it's not like win or lose. It's more so for, like, the event, but obviously you want to win every game. So kind of just go into it, do your best, and the result is the result, I guess.
And Lily, again, when you get a chance to go play Everest and have this opportunity on this stage, obviously within town, and especially at this time of the year, does it have a little extra juice for you and your teammates?
Yeah, I think it's a great competition right before playoffs because we get prepared. We face some great hitters, great serving, and that really lets us settle in right before playoffs. So I think it's a great time of the year to have this game. Yeah.
How does the atmospheres compare, like when you get there tomorrow night, like knowing that
Tuesday of next week.
or Tuesday,
Thursday.
that
Thursday.
Oh, you're right. It is Thursday. Man, I want to share something real fast. You asked the question. But I was actually rushing to get you on tonight because I thought, holy cow, it'll be Tuesday next week. I get you on tonight. So it's even further. I could have had you on next week, but I was all worried about getting you on right away. but continue on. I should look at these things a little more closely. There's so much going on.
So the great thing about volleyball, kind of like basketball, like there's 6 of you on the court at a time, so you don't have to be a school of 1,800, a school of 100 when you guys have the tradition you have and compete at that level. So on the court, it's very similar. What's the atmosphere from the crowd like? I mean, I know Newman's a big community crowd because it's from Wausau or whatever, but your school itself, like the number of students who come. So what is the atmosphere like the night of the game?
Yeah, I think obviously our student section's not big, but we are very loud. And like last night, it was our senior night. We had a great student section. They were screaming the entire game. So they bring a lot of great energy, and it's just so fun to see because we're all been friends since kindergarten. So it's just a great community, like you said.
Yeah, I feel like our student section always shows up to games, and it's always fun to have students there. I think same like any other night.
I'm going to underline now the correct information so people know when to show up for this event next week. It'll be next Thursday, October the 10th, JV at 5:30, varsity at 7, Everest and Newman. The community fundraiser game at DC Everest Senior High School, volley for our neighbors, benefiting the neighbor's place. And again, there'll be silent auction items, raffle baskets. There'll be a serve for prizes game. All concession sales will be donated, and no charge to get in, but a minimum donation of $1 for a ticket. So doggone if you can't get that dollar at least to get in there and enjoy the great volleyball and also for a great cause. That's next Thursday night at DC Everest. Something that you're talking about, the energy, and that's something about volleyball I think that anybody that goes to a volleyball match senses right away, not just within the crowd but within the players between the lines. And I think it builds on each other because I do think there's a different energy. I know Kirsten and Lily, you both play basketball as well. There's a different feel in the gym for a volleyball game than a basketball game, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure.
How would you compare the two? Why is it that maybe that, number one, the girls on the court, every point you celebrate? I mean, you really do get together and you celebrate these points, and I think it goes into the crowd as well. How would you, again, why is it that maybe there's a different energy, and how is it different when you're on the basketball court and on the very same court for volleyball?
Yeah, I feel like basketball, at least for me, obviously our team is not like the most successful, but we still like have fun. Volleyball though, it's just like you like strive for energy, like the most energy you can have, and it's like so much momentum goes into like who's winning, really. So if you can get that momentum and energy on your side, like you have success like in your view. So basically that's what you want every game.
And what about you, Lily, in terms of, if you get a layup or hit a 15-footer in basketball, it's not the same celebration as if you get a point in volleyball. How do you compare the two experiences? Is there a favorite game that you play, basketball or volleyball? Do you enjoy one more than the other, or is it just different?
Yeah, probably more volleyball, but I feel like in volleyball there's more like breaks in the game, so there's more time to cheer, but also like what Kurt said, it's a game of momentum, and you really want to build that momentum. And I feel like it's just so fun, like getting a stuff block. Like, how can you not celebrate that? Like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off of that too, like, are the relationships any more strong, like within your team? Because you guys literally come together after every point, whether you win or lose the point. You guys huddle up, and I don't know what you guys say in there. I mean, I know it's exciting when you win, point, whatever. But are the relationships different then with your volleyball teammates than they are your basketball teammates? I know at Newman, it's probably very similar girls, right? On both teams. At Everest, some, but probably not as much. But are the relationships any more or less strong, or is it just different?
I'd say the relationships are like the same strength, but like volleyball, it's definitely easier to like celebrate your teammates because like you have that time to be like, hey, that was a great swing or something. Rather than basketball, it's just like a quick high five down the court. So like in the game, it might be a little bit stronger, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with
That's
that. Good answer.
And I guess finally, as we get to the end of the regular season and both your teams again doing very well within your conferences, getting ready for the postseason, I think for Newman, obviously, when you've been there last season, you want to get back there. And for DC Everest, what are the feelings going? We'll start with Kirsten. What are the feelings with your team going to the end of the regular? Again, obviously, you got the big matchup with Marshfield tomorrow, and the conference is still in front of you before the playoffs. But how do you feel about your group going into the postseason? Do you feel like it has the seeds for a deep run?
I would say definitely, especially after last year. We came off a tough regional final loss against Eau Claire North. We kind of went into that game expecting like at least a better performance from us. So we all kind of have that like in us, like we need to like do better this year. So we're all just like, we're ready. We're excited.
And Lily, is there an extra pressure coming off a trip to state where you have to start all over again? You don't get to start where you finished off last season, so close to a state championship. You have to actually go through the entire process. What's the feeling going in now as you get towards the playoffs for that run?
Yeah, I feel like there obviously is that pressure, like you said, but our coaches and we're all just so close. We all just had a talk at the beginning of the season, like we're a different team than last year. Obviously, we want to carry that with us, but we just need to reset our minds and just play strong from the start of playoffs because you never know what can happen. Every night's a new battle. So,
Lily Shields, Kirsten Hall. Lily from Newman Catholic, Kirsten from DC Everest. Again, next Thursday night, October the 10th, the Volley for Our Neighbors game between the Evergreens and the Fighting Cardinals community fundraiser at DC Everest. Again, 5:30 JV, 7 o'clock varsity. Lots of stuff going on and all the proceeds going to the neighbors' place. So, ladies, again, thank you for popping on over. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Against Marshfield, number one.
Yeah.
And then have
Big
fun.
game.
Have fun next week and have fun in the playoffs.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to come back, preview this week's football action coming up next here on the Big High School Sports Show, brought to you by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO.
Big results on the gridiron, as some teams have already clinched playoff spots after Week 6. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells. More high school sports news after this. You may have heard of Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells, one of the country's premier destinations for youth sports and events, but did you know that Just a Game does so much more? Just a Game also delivers end-to-end apparel, equipment, and event solutions. With their state-of-the-art screen printing and embroidery facility, they can help with branding for your team and business items, including uniforms, apparel, and more. Just a Game also offers digital services that include a cashless digital platform and event live streaming. Just a Game has also added a second brand new facility in Reedsburg. Find more information at justagame.com. Week 6 of the high school football season is in the books, as we're now 2/3 of the way through the regular season. That also means that some teams have already punched their playoff tickets. A total of 70 teams in 11-player football have gotten to that magical 4 conference wins number and have secured their spot in the playoffs this year. Another 75 teams are on the bubble with 3 conference wins and can clinch a spot with 1 more league victory. Looking back at last week, Oconomowoc continued to prove its hot start is no fluke, as the Raccoons remained unbeaten with a 28-21 win over Arrowhead in the Quick Trip and Wisconsin Dairy Game of the Week. Quarterback Austin Munzel had a big day, throwing for 356 yards and 4 touchdowns. Defending D2 champ Badger handed Burlington its first loss of the year, 54-14, as Matthew O'Grady was responsible for 4 touchdowns on 6 touches. In a huge Big Rivers Conference game, defending D3 state champion and previous D2 top-ranked Rice Lake suffered its first loss of the season, as New Richmond took down the Warriors 23-22 to stay unbeaten and take over sole possession of first place in the league standings. Sun Prairie East rallied for a 34-31 win over Monona Grove as Brady Mellum nailed a 40-yard field goal with just 15 seconds remaining for the victory. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net and search Apple for the WSN podcast.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction here on 98.9 WXCO. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. And lots of young people tonight, and makes you feel young as I get very old. But no, all outstanding. You just feel like, they all seem so juiced up about what they're doing. And you love seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, 2 programs that have great tradition. 2 young ladies who are very committed to what they're doing when they talk about club volleyball and all the time them and their families have put into it, but also really cool what they're doing for the neighbor's place. Yep. And kind of all surrounding communities all kind of do some version of that. And I think it's great. I think it's great for bringing the community together. I think it's great for supporting those causes, but also very cool to watch these 2 young ladies who will compete to both try to win next Thursday night, but also be very good friends. And I mean, they probably had as much fun sitting here talking to each other prior when we were off the air as they did on the air. So exciting. And obviously Blake, another great student athlete and on a program that's going in the right direction, and excited to see where he takes his team the rest of this year.
And we will remind everybody of the big volleyball event next week as well. I'll make sure to write that down. Make sure, because I thought it was Tuesday. So I was like, I got the note and it said, could you do something? Oh yeah, bring the girls on tonight. And they set it up, and it's like, because I thought we had to get it done before next Tuesday. So again, even I make an error once in a while. Let's talk about this week's football. Again, week number 7, lots of big games in terms of conference races and also in terms of playoff races. Wisconsin Valley Conference, DC Everest at Chippewa Falls, crossover game. Evergreens, winners of 5 games in a row. Chi High fighting their way. That's a big game for Chippewa Falls, 2-2 in their Big Rivers Conference. They beat Stevens Point in a non-conference game earlier. But again, an Everest team that's been rolling pretty good, and this is again one of those games that features maybe a playoff preview as well. There's a lot of layers to this, isn't there?
Yeah, we kind of talked earlier about off the air what that Division I bracket might look like, because in this Wisconsin Valley, Big Rivers East and West, there's kind of quite a few D1 schools and quite a few D2 schools in there as well. So interesting to see where Chippewa Falls is at. Obviously, great win early against what we know now is a very tough SPASH team, and DC Everest is going on the road, which which is always a challenge as well. But I think this is kind of I don't know as much for Chippewa Falls and where they sit over on the other side, but from DC Everest, this is kind of a turning point for them. I mean, if they get a nice win here, followed up with a nice win against Spash, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, that unlocks a lot of things for them and gets them really heading in the right direction. On the flip side of that, they have a stumble in this one, stumble against Spash, and they went from kind of sitting on the top to kind of looking up and wondering who they are at the end.
Yeah.
So this should be a really good game, and I'm kind of excited to see the outcome of this one.
And Blake Bankston said it. They want to play a home game. And to play a home game, they're going to have to win this one.
Yeah,
I think that's for sure. Also in the Valley, homecoming at Wausau West. Warriors take on Marshfield. Game that we will have live right here on 98.9 WXCO on Friday night. Warriors, again, this was a rough night last week. I think for Wausau West, it's about coming out there with that edge. And for Marshfield, trying to build on what happened last week.
Yeah, I think we talk in all the conferences that we cover, we kind of talk about the top tier, the second tier, and then the bottom third or the bottom tier. And I think this game really, West already having tough losses to both Everest and Spash. I think this is really for the battle of the second tier of the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Marshfield's been playing good football. West stumbled last week, so I think this should be a really good game and kind of make the picture for the Wisconsin Valley Conference East a little more clear.
Eau Claire Memorial at Wisconsin Rapids. 0-6 versus 0-6. But again, whoever wins this game is going to feel a whole lot better about things, aren't they?
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I mean, this is kind of a Wisconsin Rapids team that possesses the ball but doesn't gain a lot of yards or score a lot of points, and an Eau Claire Memorial team who likes to play up-tempo. So this should be an interesting one.
And Stevens Point at Eau Claire North. And again, Eau Claire North has got themselves a couple of conference wins when it comes to playoff eligibility. So they're knocking on the door of getting to the postseason. But Stevens Point, boy, again, I was impressed last week. Frankly, I thought they were going to be a little bit taking a step back. And yes, I still think there's maybe some questions, but they came out there and really did a good job last week.
Yeah, prior to last week, just looking at the stats and what they are, I thought maybe it looks like they are just a tick below where they were last year. But after watching them play, I think maybe they're just a little different than they were last year. Last year, they relied a lot on the big play because they had the athletes to do it.
Yeah.
And this year, they really possess the ball. For lack of a better way of saying it, they kind of play small ball, right? The screen game, a lot of short swing passes. I mean, the quarterback...
real quickly, as a coach, as a defensive coach, but the way they executed those short passes, I mean, they just kept getting yardage. What did you see with what they do with those short passes?
They really attacked our edges, or West's edges, and West had a really hard time of containing that edge and then being effective out in space. They definitely came in with a really good game plan. Those screens in the middle of the field and those quick swing passes and bubble screens to the outside, and they really relied on our inability to kind of play in that space, like they blocked it very well and very strategically and kind of let our guys upfield and then we're able to get their guys out in space. But at the end of the day, they didn't really have big plays through that either. I mean, Grant Chanana rushes 20 to 25 times a game, but he averages 3 or 4 yards a rush, but they're very meaningful. Like he gets a lot of first downs. Those short passes kind of get him into those 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 situations, and that's when he kind of takes over and gets you 4, 5, 6 yards, 2, 3, 4, whatever you need. Kind of is they're very efficient on offense. So I think that's probably what gets them into trouble a little bit against Hudson. Those really strong defenses, their inability to move the ball downfield and punch it in the end zone.
Great Northern Conference. You have Medford at Tomahawk. It's interesting that it seems like everybody in the GNC plays Medford and Mosinee back-to-back. Tomahawk at Mosinee last week. They have Medford this week. Medford right now atop the league standings by themselves. Tomahawk, as you said, go back to week 2 when they played Wittenberg-Burnwood. That was a one-score game until the last minute of the game. They they're 2-4 overall, but they are a much more competitive team as they move into the GNC this year, aren't they?
Yeah, I wonder if this is a game that Medford. I mean, this is a tough conference schedule for Medford, and that they're not getting a lot of competition. They're not getting so how they stay up and prepare week to week is important. And I think we've mentioned a couple times throughout the course of the season that they're going to need to be able to throw the ball in order to make a run in the playoffs. So is this the type of game where they work on their passing game a little bit? Obviously they're going to run the ball and they're going to get their yards and do well. And Tomahawk seems to run the ball well too. So it's definitely a possession game and probably one that's going to go pretty quick.
Mosinee at Rhinelander. And again, as we talked about earlier, it's not been easy for Mosinee at a big second half to rally past Tomahawk last week. It feels like this could be a low-scoring game. Rhinelander is, for the most part, been pretty good defensively. I was a little surprised they gave up 28 against Anago last week. They have not scored big totals during the course of the season, and Mosinee has not been putting up the overwhelming offensive numbers we've seen in the past. They've been kind of relying on Treef Stoffel to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Right, and Tomahawk had a really nice first half against Mosinee last week. I mean, Mosinee kind of exploded in the second half, but this kind of... I've been terrible at predicting these games. I mean, this kind of has the feel of it that I won't be shocked if I look at the TV tomorrow night and Rhinelander finds a way to pull this one off, partially because they need to if they want to keep this thing rolling.
I'll be a bit of a jerk here and say if you watch TV tomorrow night and see Rhinelander beating Mosinee, then there's something wrong there because they don't play till Friday.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. You will be a little bit of a jerk there.
I like to just throw a little curve in there once in a while.
Yes.
Antigo at Lakeland. If it's close, I would say go with Anago.
Yeah. Well, if it's close, go with Anago. I think at Lakeland makes a difference for them.
It does.
But if you look at what Merrill did to Lakeland, and I think Lakeland has some injury issues, especially at that quarterback position, I think the door's wide open for Anago to go up there and make a football game.
Merrill at Wausau East Saturday at high noon at Tom Field. Boy, it would have been, I think, exceptionally interesting if Merrill was full strength, but losing a couple of players due to suspension, that makes it a lot harder. But again, sometimes a guy like Jason Wadzinski, you go to the lab, and you try to figure something out, and sometimes you can find something, right?
Yeah, and talking to him and talking to their players this season, it sounds like they do have they have some nice senior leadership, some guys who play multiple positions, both sides of the ball. So who knows who they have to play that? And the other thing I've noticed in talking to both the coach and players from Merrill is they now consider Wausau East to be a really good rivalry game. You always kind of go into those rivalry games. You know it's East homecoming. Maybe they're a little distracted, so this should be interesting.
CWC Small, Stratford at Marathon. That game will be heard on the Sports 2 stream of BullFallsRadio.com and on the Civic Media app, and also on tape delay following the West Marshfield game here on 98.9 WXCO.
I hope this isn't Marathon's homecoming game. I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is or isn't.
It's,
but
again, just hard when you're shorthanded. I mean, especially when you get the smaller divisions. There's such a thin line between being competitive and having a rough go of it.
Yeah, I think they're all excuses. Every team has the same thing.
Know.
So, but we talk a lot about injuries and at certain levels, if you have 100 kids in your football program and you get a few injuries, you probably have some other options. Never as good as your first option, but some good options. When you get to these smaller schools and they lose their first guy, get past their second guy, the options are not as good. And that's not to take away from anybody as a player or their ability, but that's just the nature of the smaller schools and the smaller rosters.
First place team Stratford on the road, but the second and third place teams in the CWC large. I said small. I typed it wrong. Man, I'm just full of mistakes here tonight. CWC large, Amherst home against Wyowega Fremont. Wittenberg-Burnhamwood home against Colby. Actually, both, I think, potential of some interesting games.
Yeah, Amherst had to do some work last week against Spencer Columbus. So Wyowega Fremont probably saw some things on film that's going to help them game plan for Amherst. Obviously, Amherst should be favored, and the Colby Witt-Birn should be a good matchup. I mean, Colby is coming off a tough one against, just like everybody else who plays Stratford. They're coming off a tough one, and this is probably one they've had circled on their thing as opportunity to build a new rivalry here and two really strong programs, and should be a good game.
And Colby had won impressively the previous 2 weeks. Again, Stratford right now just looks to be a step ahead of not just teams in this area, but maybe around the state of Wisconsin. They're that good. Got Loyal Greenwood at Spencer Columbus. And again, you talk about these games where teams have struggled, looking for that first conference win. opportunities. There's always opportunities, aren't there?
Yeah, and both Loyal Greenwood, Spencer Columbus, there aren't a lot of wins in this conference schedule. So these are the ones that you really get up for and you hope for good things. And I think this is probably maybe a statement game for Spencer Columbus. We'll see.
CWC Small, it's kind of 2 tiers. The top 4 teams battling each other out. Bottom 4 teams battling each other out. Got Assumption at Pittsville, Rochelle at Pacelli as those teams look to get some success in this conference. But we'll focus on the top 4 teams. Iola Scandinavia at Edgar, Auburndale at Abbotsford. I mean, Edgar right now looking, the way they handled Auburndale earlier, they're looking very, very tough. Iola, their one loss was only a 1-score game against Abbotsford, who's been dominant recently. But those 2 games, both interesting.
Yeah, I think when I look at all the matchups this week, there's some good ones, but I mean, the Abbotsford-Auburndale might be the one I'm most intrigued by. I mean, is Abbotsford going to be able to keep that offense just rolling? And in Auburndale, who's number 2, right? Who's number 2 in this conference? I think we'll know a lot more after Friday night.
And an 8-player on Thursday afternoon, a 4 p.m. kickoff, 3:35 airtime right here on 98.9 WXCO. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Newman Catholic at Port Edwards, 4-1 versus 4-1. And frankly, this is a playoff elimination game. I mean, because you're not going to have, Coach Mickley was saying, I mean, when you look at the 16 teams that make it in the 8-player playoffs, you may get one 6-2 team, but I mean, you go to 4-2 after this week, it's going to be very tough. So a lot on the line this week.
Yeah, I talked to the Port Edwards coach a couple weeks ago, and I know he had this game circled on his schedule as you would expect, as I'm sure Newman Catholic did as well. So this should be a good one. They've been playing good football. They've both played tough teams and had tough losses. So yeah, this should be a really good game and give some good look as to what the 8-man playoff picture is going to look like.
And Phillips at Athens and Rib Lake at Flambeau, a couple of other 8-player games from the general area as well. But we got about a little more than a minute to go, and week number 7, and should be another nice night weather-wise. Don't have to worry about that. But again, getting down the stretch, and boy, again, we talk about winning conference, you talk about qualifying for playoffs, and then you try to be as high in the seedings as possible. There's just so much on the line now these final weeks.
Yeah, this is where we always ask both our coaches.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.